There are so many small flight schools in South Africa. Like they will have 5 aircraft, 6 aircrafts. The airfield is very nice. They have very new aircrafts. They have good instructors. But the thing is that they don't advertise themselves as much, right? But those schools are very good. See, there are many agents sitting in the Indian market. So any ground school, they get money from those schools. Usually what I've heard is around 3 to 4 lakh rupees per student. The CFI just indirectly says that it's your logbook. Whatever you log, I don't care. You do whatever you want. Just don't let me know that you're fake logging it. If DGCA gets to know about it, these particular schools, they're doing illegal training. So any student coming from that school, their license won't be converted. Training in South Africa is illegal. The CFI of the school makes a fake document for the student.
Hello and welcome back to our channel, guys. Many Indian students are considering doing their CPL from South Africa, but there is a lot of confusion regarding the cost, training quality, and safety, and whether it's actually worth it or no. So, in today's video, I'm talking to a pilot who completed his CPL in South Africa, and he'll be sharing his journey, challenges, mistakes, and advice so that you guys can make an informed decision before spending your hard-earned money. So, welcome to the channel, and we can start with a short introduction. And where did you do your CPL from?
I see. I did my CPL from South Africa in Cape Town, the school called Four Aviators. I passed it like about 1.5 years ago, and yeah, that's it.
All right. And can you give us a brief explanation about the whole CPL process in South Africa from start to finish? And how long does it usually take to complete CPL from South Africa?
Okay, the CPL process in South Africa is basically firstly, like you will get your visa, everything, insurance, everything, and then you go to your whatever school you have chosen, and there your training will start with the PPL. So first you complete your PPL, then you complete your night rating, and then you complete your 100 hours of power building, and then once you finish all the exams for the CPL, there are around 10 exams for the CPL. Once you finish that, then only you are allowed to start your instrument rating. And then finally, if you want to do your multi-engine, otherwise you can do single engine CPL.
All right. Can we talk a little more about the exams and how difficult are they?
Okay, so the exams, so there are total 19 exams in South Africa. So the first stage of your training, which is PPL, in that you will have around 8 exams in that, right? Difficulty wise, I think it's the PPL exams are not difficult at all. I've seen students clearing it in within a week, all the 8 exams, right? But the fact is that those students have already prepared for their DGCA exams. They have already cleared their DGCA exams in India, and then they came for the training. But still, I have seen students who have not like studied anything for the DGCA. They came directly for the training, but still they were able to ace the PPL exam quite nicely. There are Havex books which people usually study there and do the question banks over there, and they easily pass the PPL. Next comes the night rating exam. That's a cake book. That's like if you study for 2-3 days, you will pass the theory paper. After that, when you're done with your PPL and night rating, then you start giving your CPL exams. Now, CPL exams is, I won't say it's a rocket science, but it's lengthy. There are a lot of things to study over there, like 10 exams and everything in detail. Basically, you can imagine the Oxford book, right? So all the theory related to that will be asked in the exams, right? And there are 10 exams, like General Navigation 1, the instruments radio like this, you will have to get 10 exams. So you will have to put in a bit of effort for that. Not difficult to understand, but yeah, you will have to study. So like if you study for 2-3 months nicely, then you will clear all your CPL exams as well.
Okay. And when you chose South Africa, what mattered more to you? Was it the cost of the training or was it the quality? And now, when you look back at the situation, do you think your decision was worth it?
Look, when I was planning for my CPL training, that time it was like the entire country was under lockdown for COVID, right? So I initially tried for US, but couldn't go there because of visas and other things as well. Uh, New Zealand and South Africa was new options available for me, but eventually South Africa opened their borders first, right? So that became the natural option for me to go because, sitting in COVID, I had already wasted a lot of time and I immediately wanted to start my trading. And then I was happy because, I did not hear anything bad about South Africa. Everyone said that the training standards are quite high there, right? And you will have to study over there. People said me that. But I thought of it as a positive because, you can't have a shortcut for anything. You have to study. I can't, like, thinking that, okay, there I won't be able to study doesn't make me a good pilot, right? So I was happy with it. Cost wise, also, I felt like, okay, it's bearable. Like, it's obviously it's very cheaper than compared to any other country in the world. So I was like, fine, borders are open, training is good, cost effective, let's go there. Now, when I think back, was my decision correct? I think uh, it's a variable thing, right? First of all, the school I chose there, the management was bad, right? But eventually, I think the entire training of a student depends on what instructor do they get, right?
Exactly.
Because it's not the management or the aircraft that will teach you. It's the instructor. Like the instructor can make you or he can break you. Like if he wants, he can consume all your hours and you will have to pay. Luckily, in my case, I got a very good instructor. He was young, he was new, and he was, willing to put in the effort. And thankfully, I got him. And eventually, like, he made me what I am today. Otherwise, I would not have survived in the management of the school, like, for aviation.
All right. All right. Now let's talk about you choosing four aviators. Did you compare it with other flying schools of South Africa at that time?
See, I was a newbie that time, right? Eventually, whosoever starts there, see, there's first of all no one from aviation background in my family, right? And I did all my ground classes also on my own, studied everything on my own. I was getting guidance from here and there, like bits and pieces, not like a proper guidance, right? So for a student like that, like who doesn't know anything about aviation, it's very difficult to compare a school. He doesn't even understand like what a control aerodrome is, what are the benefits of training on a control aerodrome, uncontrolled aerodrome. He would just watch, like I used to just watch videos. Okay, some people are saying training on a controlled aerodrome is good, some people are saying training on an uncontrolled aerodrome is good. But I don't even know what the term means. The technical term I don't know. All like a student who is just going to start will just see the cost, will just see the location, is it safe or not, will just see the number of aircraft the school has. That's it. The rest of the thing doesn't really matter. So I also chose for aviators thinking that okay, it's in Cape Town. There will be safety. That time the number of students were also less when I went there. So I felt it would be a nice option. But you know, I didn't think like I not for even a moment I thought that there will be so much of hidden charges, there will be so much of extra things that I should have taken into mind before choosing a school. But anyway, I went there, I got stuck. I started understanding, okay, these are the tricks the school can play to get more money from you. These are the ways the school can really screw you up because eventually they have the logbook in your hand, right? And they can do anything with their logbook. They can do anything with their money because you are in a foreign country. You see, when you go to study, if someone is doing bad to you, yeah, like very few people decides to go a legal way, take an action against them if they're doing anything wrong. Because you're in a foreign country, you just want to finish your training quickly and come back home, right? So that's like the school management knows that, and they utilizes it very nicely for their own advantage. They will try to bully you, they will try to squeeze you. So these are the things which I didn't know at that time. But again, I was new. I had no guidance. Whatever I saw, their advertisement, I saw that and I went to this.
Okay. And do you think if you are given a chance to decide a school in South Africa right now, would you still prefer four aviators or do you think there are better schools?
No, not at all. I think there are way, way better schools in South Africa because over the period of time that I stayed there, I explored everything. I explored the other flanks of them. People don't even know in India, there are so many small flight schools in South Africa, right? Like very small clubs. Like they will have 5 aircraft, 6 aircrafts. Like you just go there. The airfield is very nice. They have beautiful, they have like very new aircrafts. They have good instructors. But the thing is that they don't advertise themselves as much, right? But the schools are very good. Like for the local public in South Africa, they know the school. But the thing is that these schools, like Four Aviators and other schools in South Africa, in Johannesburg, they advertise themselves so much in India that they become famous. But it may not be that so they are famous. It will be a good school. So yes, in South Africa, there are like specifically in Cape Town, there are schools like Stellenbosch and Booster. Those are such good school over there. If given a chance, I would definitely go there again and do my training.
Okay. And let's talk a little bit about your conversion process and how that all went and from where did you do your conversion flying from and how was the experience about?
Yeah, conversion was very smooth. Like doesn't see conversion is all in the hands of which school you choose and what time of the month is it in India, and how's the weather around that school during that month. It's just basically just four flights. Like you do your GFT day, GFT night, 250, 120, and one IR check. So I think I finished my conversion within 10 days, and yeah, conversion was smooth. There was no problem with the conversion.
What school was it?
It was a South school in Mysore.
All right, all right, all right. And let's say someone is planning to start their CPL journey and they've decided that they want to go to South Africa. Do you have any final advice for them?
Choose the school wisely, right? So don't just go for the advertisement. Like, see, there are many agents sitting in the Indian market, be it in Bombay, be it in Delhi, or anywhere else. Those agents or any ground school, right? They get money from those schools. Usually, what I've heard is around 3 to 4 lakh rupees per student. So eventually, the ground school doesn't care about how good the training is. They are getting a lot of money from you guys. They will try to sell as many students to them as much possible, right? So people need to understand it. Don't just blindly follow what your ground school is saying, what other people or what they're advertising. You need to literally go speak to the students, try to get in contact with some of the students, specifically with the students who are in the end stage of their training, not the students who haven't even done their PPL. Because, for a new student, the school is always good because he doesn't understand. He's still learning. There are a lot of things going on in his head. The student who hasn't even done their solo, the school is always good for them. Like, they don't understand other parts of the training. So whosoever is trying to, thinking to go to South Africa, do your research.
Mhm.
Try to, check on Instagram, Facebook, anywhere else, the students who are at the end stage of their training, speak to them. How is the school management? Right? First thing, how is the school management? Are there any hidden charges? Second, because in South Africa, there are a lot of hidden charges. Third thing, so there is a rule in for CPL that you have to have minimum 50 hours of cross-country flight, right? The rule is that you have to fly that 50 hours of cross-country completely solo.
Yes.
Completely solo. And when you come back to India, you have to convert your license and you have to make a document as well that you have flown those 50 hours of cross country completely solo without any safety pilot, right? Many schools in South Africa are sending safety pilots with the students. Why? Because they just want to get more students. So they want to finish the hour building of the old students quickly so that they can earn more money. Even the weather is bad, they will send a safety pilot with the student and send them for the cross country flight. I mean, the student doesn't learn anything in that. Trust me, as a pilot, when you fly solo, the confidence and the skills that you build is way higher than you fly with a safety pilot, right? And the biggest illegal thing happening, especially in Ford Aviators, is that the CFI of the school makes a fake document for the student. Literally a fake document for the student stating that the student has done all his cross-country flights without a safety pilot alone. And that's a fake, that's an illegal document. And trust me, if the DGCA gets to know about it, right? If the DGCA gets to know about it, or maybe anyone, maybe the civil minister, if he gets to know about it, that the pilot are not getting trained according to the standards. Just tell me one thing, would you ever sit in an aircraft of a pilot who's not trained properly, not trained according to the standards?
Never. No one would.
Never, exactly. No one would. And, through your platform, I just want to tell you that the training in South Africa, especially in Ford Aviators, is illegal. 50 hours of cross-country, they're sending safety pilot and they're making a fake document for it, right? So basically, they are not trained properly. And eventually, they will end up, these pilots will end up flying in the Indian airspace one day. And just imagine, right? Just because the school wants to make money, they will send safety pilot. The students will quickly finish the hour building. That's it. Done. They will take admission for the new students. This is the first thing you need to ask, like any student who's going, that is your cross country happening without a safety pilot? You're right, because you want to become a good pilot. You're not just going to finish your hours. You want to learn things. Next thing, how much time the school is taking, right? What I would suggest to the student is that don't go for any package system, right? Because a lot of school over there tend to sell a package like, yes, and you have to, let's say they will quote your money in, let's say 40 lakh rupees. You will be done with all your CTL within 40 lakh rupees. But they will put a limit on it, like you have to do within 15 months, you have to do within this month, otherwise the rates will increase. That's a trap. That's basically a trap, even no matter how much hard the student push, there are some unvariable factors like the weather, the aircraft going into maintenance, other things. The school doesn't take those things into account, and eventually you might end up finishing your trip ending in more than 15 months or 12 months. And then the school will start charging extra money for that. So my suggestion will be that ask the hourly rate of the school and then go for it. And even if you don't understand, okay, then what you can do is the students can just go for PPL. Ask the school that, listen, I just want to do the PPL right now, as of now. Once I finish my PPL, then I will decide whether I will continue the training or not. Because by the time you finish your PPL, you will have a very much a fair understanding about the school. You will speak to the students over there. You will understand, okay, have they charged you more or not? And then if you feel the school is good, then continue with the further training. Because you know what happens specifically in Port Aviator, I'll tell you what happens over there. They will charge you certain amount of money, right? And then during your PPL time, you saw everything. Okay, shit, the management is bad. Everything is happening is bad. They're charging extra money. They are sending safety pilots on cross-country flights, and then you decide to leave the school. But the student who goes there first, they already signed a contract without reading it that only a certain amount of money will be returned back to you. Imagine, now the students are stuck. That listen, I have already paid, let's say 50 lakhs and I'm only getting back 3 lakhs. How can I leave the school now? And on the top of that, you have my logbook, right? They have really thought into the process how to trap the student. You know, I had friends, a lady came there. She was married. I know. I think at that time I was about to leave. Like my training was already done that time. And that lady was from Hyderabad or somewhere. I don't know. A Muslim girl. She was married. I think she had kids as well. She came there for the training. She did not even do one flight because you know she didn't feel very comfortable training over there. The very first day, like the accommodation, the students over there. So she decided that okay, listen, I'm not feeling comfortable. I'll just leave the school. Guess what? What I have heard is that lady didn't get any of his money back.
Wow.
And she already paid, let's say, the first installment, let's say around 9-10 lakh rupees. And she did not get any of her money back. Can you imagine that? One more story I have got to heard about. One of the students, I don't know exactly his name. He was a very new student. He couldn't speak English properly, right? So what the student did, I think he did just couple of flights, just 2 flights. And the instructor said that, listen, his English is not very good, but he understands everything and he can manage. He can manage that. Right. The school said, management said that, listen, we don't think his English is good. We will stop his training. They said that go take some English class and then come back. But your package is on, right? So basically the guy studied English for 2 months, but you know, he was in a package of 15 months. Once the 15 months is over, they will overcharge you, right? They can charge you any amount of money they want. They will overcharge you. So he learned English, but eventually what happened is that he broke his leg. So he broke his leg. That poor guy, right? He broke his leg. He just did 2 flights. He had an operation and got a surgery in Cape Town. Then he decided to came back to India. But when he came back to India, their parents, his financial conditions were not very good. So eventually he decided, listen, I will stop my pilot training. I won't do any further training. Guess what? He paid around the initial installment is of around 10-15 lakh rupees. He did just 2 flights. He did not get a single penny. So that's the way they trap you. And eventually, another scam of multi-engine is going on there, right? So see, from Ford Aviators, none of the students were doing multi-engine, right? When I came back to India, I got to heard that I think 3 or 4 students decided to do their multi-engine from there, right? But that too because what was happening is that initially the students, they were not doing the multi-engine. They said that, listen, we don't want to do a multi-engine from there. So school that time was returning their money back for the multi-engine. You know, they give you a package. So whatever the flying hours you didn't do on multi, whatever the amount is, they will return you back, right? So those guys were saying that when our time came, we also didn't wanted to do a multi-engine from there. But when our time came, the school simply refused us to return the money back. And they said that, listen, you are in a package. If you want to do the multi-engine training, if you don't want to do the multi-engine training, it's fine, but you won't get the money back, right? So the student said that, but you return the money to the other students, like the previous student. The school management said that that was a mistake. So eventually they were forced to do their multi-engine training. And then I got to know that they had to do them. They can't let their money go, right? 5-7 lakh is not a small amount, right? That's like half the money of your type rating. So they decided to do their multi-engine. And guess what happened? The multi-engine on which they wanted to train, the aircraft, I think it went on engine overall. Yeah, it went on engine overall. And those guys were sitting for 3 months, 3 to 4 months without any flight. So yes, there was another catch that I got to know for the multi-engine from there. That when they were starting the multi-engine training, the school said that, listen, you have to pay for 23 hours of multi-engine training before starting the training. Because one of our students have finished their multi-engine training in 23 hours. So we want that the training should go smoothly. If you finish early, let's say less than 23 hours, we'll return you the money back. But if you don't finish, if you finish in more, then you will have to pay more. But for now, to start as the multi-engine, you have to pay for 23 hours. So the students paid for 23 hours. One of the students finished in 20 hours. And when he went back to ask for the money, sir, listen, I have finished it for within 20 hours. The CFI of the school simply, I think, I heard is refused him. He said that, listen, you won't get your money back. If you want, you can fly more, like more PIC hours on any of you. So they don't return the money back. That's a scam that's going on there. And one of the student did. I got to heard that one of the student did not even get his multi-Indian rating when he came back to India for conversion. The reason was what I got to heard that the multi-Indian rating for one particular student that they gave was not in according to the rules of DGCA. Yeah, right. So the DGC refused to give them the multi-Indian rating. Now the student went to the management and said that, listen, I'm not getting a multi-Indian rating over here. How can you help me? The school simply refused that, listen, it's not our fault, right? It's not our fault. The school is not responsible for it. I'm like, like you're going to college, and the college is telling you that, listen, I don't know the syllabus. I know I have the knowledge. I will teach you everything, but you have to tell us the syllabus.
Yeah.
So it's like that. It's like that. They're calling all the Indian students, ki, hey, listen, come do training with us. Come do mighty engine with us. But I don't know the syllabus. I don't know what are the rules of India is. Right? So you are responsible for that. But we will train you according to our knowledge, our rules and regulations. Then why would the students go there? And that too, that poor guy didn't even wanted to do his mighty Indian training from there. It was because the school was not returning his money back. He was kind of forced to do his mighty Indian rating from there. And that poor guy, I think he's still struggling to get his license. He's giving his checks in India. I got to her. So that level of mismanagement is going on. And not just mismanagement, the illegal flights, the 50 hours cross country, they are sending safety pilots to go with them. Trust me, you don't want to fly with those pilots again. Basically, to cross country for any layman, in a very layman term, to a new student who's watching, I'll just tell them that cross country is basically a flight of more than 100 nautical miles. So basically, let's say flying from Delhi to Bombay alone, right? And there's a specific reason this rule has been created, that it teaches a pilot how to navigate from one point to another, one city to another, with full confidence and all using all the facilities available to him. Now, if you're sending a safety pilot with them, do you think doesn't it fail the entire purpose of the rules that has been created? So that's illegal, and the problem is that nobody is informing DGCA. DGCA needs to know about it. Recently a circular was released by DGCA that, listen, extra charging that is happening abroad, DGCA is not responsible for it, right? But you know what? If DGCA gets to know about it, that, hey, listen, these particular schools are doing illegal training, right? They can, what they can do? They won't interfere in whatever training the school is doing abroad because they are beyond their laws, right? All they can do is that they will release a circular that, listen, these particular schools, we have got to know that they're doing illegal training, right? Illegal training. So any student coming from that school, their license won't be converted. Eventually, the students will stop going to that school. That's what DGC can do if they really care about the pilot training and everything. I think it happened. It happened like for Philippines, I guess. I think a long time back, Philippines was not in the good books of DGC for the same reason. I think if these things continue going, then it will be for South Africa very soon. Because trust me, very many schools are there who are doing some illegal things like this. And another thing, a lot of fake logging is happening. I have the proof for it. Basically, I've studied there. I know each and every illegal activities that they're doing with proof. They for cross country flights, what they also do is that they send the student to they say it as long navigation. What they do is that they send students to a trip around South Africa. And guess what? With a safety pilot, right? First of all, that is illegal. You're sending a safety. Secondly, in a long navigation flight, what happens is that in a day, sometimes they tend to fly more than 10 hours, more than 11 hours. There are days where you fly more than 8 hours. And to avoid the FDTL norms, they tell the student to log, like, let's say 6 hours a day, 8 hours a day, and the remaining hours we put it on the other day. That is fake logging. When the student goes to the CFI, that, sir, I have flown like 8 hours, 9 hours this day, how should I adjust it? The CFI just indirectly says that it's your logbook, whatever you log, I don't care. So basically, indirectly, he's hinting that you do whatever you want, right? I will just sign it. Just don't let me know that you're fake logging it. But I know you are fake logging it. Yeah, these are the things which listeners should care about.
Yeah, and I'm really grateful that this channel was helpful enough to shed some light on these serious issues. And I really hope that this reaches to higher authority as and it has some meaningful improvements.
In fact, I really want any of the DGCA personnel to watch this, sir, or anyone watching it from the UK. It is illegal, especially for the documents that you get from the motivators that these students have done their 50 hours of cross country without a safety net. That's illegal. The CFI is fake. Like, he knows everything, but still he is stamping everything. So do something about it, because I don't want, like, at least I also have family and friends, right? I am confident about myself, but tomorrow if they fly in some other airplane and I got to know that, okay, listen, that pilot is flying that airplane, right? I will be scared for my family. So please, someone should look into this very seriously.
All right, I think I can end it here.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. You can end it.
All right, thank you.
If you want me to continue this series and make more such videos on some other flying school, then you can let me know in the comments which flying school you want me to cover next. And if you yourself are a student of a particular flying school and you want to share some insights about this school, then you can fill a form which is attached in the description, from where we'll set up a quick anonymous call and you can share your thoughts about a particular school there. And guys, do not take this video as a guide to avoid or join any particular flying school. Do your own research, because this is based on one student's personal experience at a flying school. So do your own research and then only decide which flying school you want to join or avoid. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.